12 professional interpreters had already tried and failed. The boardroom was tense, millions of dollars hanging in the balance, reputations trembling on the edge of collapse. Executives whispered nervously as confusion grew thicker by the minute. A critical international deal was slipping away because no one could properly understand the visiting delegation's rare dialect. Frustration turned into embarrassment. Embarrassment turned into panic. And then, quietly, from the corner of the room where no one was paying attention, a janitor paused mid-sweep. He was a single father, overworked, underpaid, invisible. Within minutes, he would speak 8 languages fluently and change his life forever. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Black Voice Story for more powerful, real-life inspired stories that expose injustice and celebrate hidden greatness. Marcus Bennett had mastered the art of being unseen. At 38 years old, he pushed a janitor's cart through the marble hallways of Whitmore Global Industries, a towering corporate headquarters that symbolized power, wealth, and prestige. The building stood in the heart of the financial district, its glass walls reflecting ambition back at the world. Inside those walls, decisions were made that shaped markets across continents. Deals worth hundreds of millions were signed in rooms Marcus cleaned every night. Yet during the day, when executives in tailored suits passed in the corridors, they rarely noticed him. Some stepped around him as if he were an obstacle. Others avoided eye contact entirely. A few offered tight, polite smiles that carried no real acknowledgement of his humanity. Marcus was used to it. He had grown up on the south side of Chicago, raised by immigrant parents who believed education was survival. His mother, originally from Haiti, spoke 3 languages. His father, born in Senegal, spoke 4. Their tiny apartment had been filled with accents, dictionaries, and late-night discussions about grammar and pronunciation. Language, to them, was not just communication. It was power. But power had not protected them from discrimination. Marcus remembered watching his father humiliated at a job interview because of his accent. He remembered teachers assuming his mother was less intelligent because English was not her first language. He remembered being told in high school that he was articulate for someone like him. Someone like him. Despite excelling academically and earning a degree in linguistics, Marcus's life took an unexpected turn. After college, he secured a promising position as a translation consultant. Things were finally moving upward until the recession hit. His firm downsized, and Marcus was among the first to go. Then came the divorce. His wife left, overwhelmed by financial instability and the strain of raising their 5-year-old daughter, Amara. Overnight, Marcus became a single father with mounting bills and no stable employment. He applied everywhere, corporate offices, translation agencies, schools, but rejection emails stacked up. Sometimes interviews ended abruptly once hiring managers saw him in person. Other times, they suggested he might be a better cultural fit elsewhere. Eventually, desperation silenced pride. When Whitmore Global Industries offered him a night janitorial position, he accepted without hesitation. The pay was modest, but provided health insurance and stability for Amara. That was enough. Every morning after finishing his shift, Marcus returned to their small apartment before Amara woke up. He made her breakfast, braided her hair, and walked her to school. At night, while she did homework at the kitchen table, he studied language journals online and practiced pronunciation exercises. He refused to let his mind grow dull. Over the years, he perfected 8 languages: English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, German, Portuguese, and Russian. Not casually, fluently. Language was his refuge, his inheritance, his secret weapon. Yet inside Whitmore Global, no one knew. To them, he was simply the cleaning guy. Meanwhile, Whitmore Global Industries was preparing for one of the largest partnerships in company history. A European energy conglomerate was considering a joint venture that would expand operations into emerging African and Asian markets. The delegation visiting the headquarters included officials from multiple regions, some speaking a rare West African dialect layered with French and Arabic influences. The stakes were enormous. CEO Richard Whitmore, a sharp, image-conscious executive in his early 50s, had invested months preparing for this meeting. He had hired top-tier interpreters to ensure seamless communication. 12, to be exact, specialists flown in from different parts of the country. Failure was not an option, but no one anticipated what was about to happen. The morning of the meeting arrived heavy with expectation. Marcus was scheduled for a day's shift to ensure the executive floor remained immaculate. Polished conference tables gleamed under recessed lighting. Bottled water was aligned precisely. Flags from partnering nations were displayed at the center of the long mahogany table. Marcus worked quietly along the perimeter as executives rehearsed presentations. Charts flickered across massive screens, projecting growth forecasts and market analyses. When the delegation arrived, the atmosphere shifted immediately. The visitors carried themselves with calm authority, their expressions measured, their voices steady. The lead delegate began speaking in what initially sounded like standard French. The first interpreter translated confidently, but within minutes, confusion crept into his face. The dialect began shifting, subtle transitions into regional phrasing, layered with idiomatic expressions and Arabic-influenced vocabulary. The interpreter hesitated. Another stepped in, then another. Each time, translation became less accurate. Words were misinterpreted. Technical terminology was mistranslated. Cultural nuances were completely missed. The delegates exchanged glances. Their posture stiffened. CEO Whitmore's jaw tightened as sweat gathered at his temples. The meeting that was meant to demonstrate global competence was unraveling before it even began. By the time the 12th interpreter attempted to clarify a particularly complex statement regarding land rights and energy infrastructure, the damage was visible. The translation came out fragmented, stripped of context. The delegation's lead representative leaned back in his chair, visibly unimpressed. In the corner, Marcus stood frozen. He understood every word, not only the vocabulary, but the subtext. The delegate wasn't merely discussing logistics. He was referencing historical exploitation of natural resources, colonial contracts, and community distrust toward foreign corporations. The nuance was critical. The interpreters were translating words, but not meaning. Marcus's heart pounded. He knew speaking up could cost him his job. A janitor interrupting a high-level corporate meeting would likely be viewed as insubordination. Worse, it might confirm stereotypes about overstepping. Yet, watching the conversation collapse felt unbearable. He thought about Amara's school tuition, her dreams of becoming a scientist, the nights he promised her that hard work would eventually be recognized. Across the table, CEO Whitmore muttered sharply to his team. Panic was spreading. The delegation began gathering their documents, signaling potential withdrawal from negotiations. Marcus felt something shift inside him. He stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not demand attention. He simply addressed the lead delegate in flawless dialect. The room fell silent. Executives turned slowly. Confusion etched across their faces. Some assumed he was mistaken. Others looked irritated that the janitor had spoken at all. But the delegate's expression changed instantly. His eyes widened, not in offense, but in recognition. Marcus continued, translating not just the surface statement, but the deeper cultural context. He clarified the concerns about land stewardship, acknowledged historical grievances, and carefully rephrased Whitmore's proposal in a way that demonstrated respect rather than dominance. The transformation was immediate. The delegation leaned forward again. Their posture softened. Engagement returned to their voices. For the next 40 minutes, Marcus navigated between 8 languages as the discussion shifted among representatives. He moved seamlessly, explaining technical data in Mandarin to one member, summarizing financial structures in German for another, and reverting to Arabic-infused French for the lead delegate. Each sentence carried precision. Each translation preserved dignity. By the time the meeting concluded, the delegation stood and extended hands, not just to the CEO, but to Marcus. The deal was back on the table, and the boardroom would never be the same. After the delegation exited, silence filled the room. Executives stared at Marcus as though seeing him for the first time. CEO Whitmore approached slowly, disbelief written across his face. The man who had never once acknowledged Marcus beyond a passing nod was now studying him with astonishment. Security had nearly intervened when Marcus first spoke. Now, those same guards looked uncertain. Whitmore demanded an explanation. Marcus calmly shared his background, his linguistics degree, his years of experience, the recession that derailed his career, and the responsibility of raising his daughter alone. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided eye contact. They had walked past a multilingual expert every single day, yet none had thought to ask who he was beyond his uniform. Whitmore ordered an immediate review of Marcus's employment file. Within hours, human resources confirmed his credentials. Everything he claimed was verifiable. The humiliation inside the executive suite was palpable. 12 highly paid professionals had failed. The invisible janitor had succeeded. By the end of the week, the delegation formally signed a partnership agreement, specifically requesting that Marcus serve as primary cultural liaison moving forward. The board convened an emergency meeting. They faced an uncomfortable truth. Their oversight was not accidental. It was rooted in assumption, in bias, in the quiet belief that talent did not wear janitor uniforms. Marcus was offered a senior consultant position in global communications, complete with six-figure salary, benefits, and educational sponsorship for his daughter. But the promotion, though life-changing, was not the most powerful moment. The most powerful moment came when Whitmore publicly acknowledged the company's failure to recognize internal talent and announced a new initiative to audit hiring practices, promote diversity in leadership, and establish scholarships for underrepresented communities in linguistics and international business. Marcus had not only saved the deal, he had exposed the system. Marcus's life transformed in ways he once believed were impossible. He moved Amara into a safer neighborhood with better schools. He attended her science fairs without exhaustion clouding his eyes. He framed his first official Whitmore Global nameplate and placed it quietly on his desk, not as a symbol of revenge, but of perseverance. Yet he never forgot the sting of invisibility. In interviews months later, he spoke not about personal triumph, but about overlooked potential. He described how many corporations search externally for brilliance while ignoring it internally. He emphasized how bias often disguises itself as oversight. His story went viral. News outlets framed it as a heartwarming tale. But beneath the inspiration lay a deeper lesson. Systemic assumptions can blind even the most powerful institutions. 12 interpreters failed because they relied solely on credentials. Marcus succeeded because he carried lived experience, cultural understanding, and empathy alongside academic knowledge. The real miracle was not that he spoke 8 languages. It was that he chose courage over silence. Some employees admitted privately that they had underestimated him. Others confessed they had never bothered learning the names of cleaning staff before. The company's culture began shifting, slowly and imperfectly, but undeniably. Marcus continued mentoring young students from immigrant and minority backgrounds, reminding them that their skills mattered, even when unseen. He often told Amara that dignity is not determined by job title. Years later, when Whitmore Global expanded successfully into international markets, Marcus stood at the forefront of cultural negotiations, not as a janitor in the corner, but as the expert at the table. His journey proved that brilliance can exist in overlooked places, that racism and bias may delay recognition, but they cannot permanently silence excellence, and that sometimes the most powerful voice in the room belongs to the one people least expect. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect on hidden bias in your own life, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Black Voice Story, because powerful voices deserve to be heard.